Hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. In the last couple of weeks on here we have been looking at video games that are quite surprising that they actually exist, such as the Russian themed Streets of Rage game made using open bore, and the Nintendo 64's WWF No Mercy game that has been modified to look like All Elite Wrestling. You see, while it is awesome that bizarreness like this exists, they both have one thing in common, in that they are insane fan-made projects. Hilariously, the game we shall be focusing on today is not fan-made at all, and instead features perhaps one of the most ridiculous officially licensed crossovers in all of video game history. In this special episode we are going to be looking at the unlikely collaboration that exists between popular fighting game franchise King of Fighters and the WWE brand, bringing the world of arcade fighters and professional wrestling closer together than ever before. Well, I guess if we do not include WrestleMania the arcade game. So sit back and relax, open a can of whoop ass, while we look at the existence of a game where Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson can lay the smackdown on Terry Bogard. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the insane story of the King of Fighters cross WWE game. Yeah! World Wrestling Entertainment, the world's leading force in sports entertainment, entertaining wrestling fans around the globe for many decades. When it comes to this iconic brand, it is not often that they choose to do crossovers with other wrestling promotions. Well, at least of those they have not already bought out anyway. In the Monday Night Wars, fans craved crossover events with WCW, and in the noughties, fans even fantasized about AJ Styles and Samoa Joe invading Vince McMahon's company. These days, while some fans would like to see either an AEW or NJPW crossover, this remains to look unlikely. However, rather amusingly, the entity has done a ton of cross-promotional work, just not much in the world of actual wrestling. Believe it or not, the WWE has made crossover movies with the likes of the Flintstones, Scooby-Doo, and even the Jetsons. In fact, there was an episode of Monday Night Raw where half the cast of The Muppet Show would turn up too. Literally anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation, provided it does not include perceived rival companies making direct profits. Speaking of crossovers, in 2020, the WWE would forge a partnership with a gaming series that is, in my opinion, the absolute king of crossovers, King of Fighters. The iconic fighting game series that would introduce teams of 3-on-3 action to the genre for the first time, and most notably featuring rosters of fighters that would mix an assortment of characters from various different SNK games. I would like to add that this all started prior to Capcom working on crossovers, and of course many years before the birth of the Smash Bros series too. Speaking of which, while many of us have likely joked that we would like to see John Cena in Smash, he is actually playable in the crossover game we are focusing on today. 4 days before National Cane Day on May 15th, 2020, it was announced on WWE's official website that WWE had teamed up with a company known as Netmarble, and the pairing were proud to bring a roster of larger-than-life superstars to the world of the King of Fighters All-Star. From that day, fans could collect and permanently add WWE superstars such as The Rock, John Cena, The Mortician, Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins and Kofi Kingston to their respective rosters within the King of Fighters video game. It would be touted that each superstar's appearance, mannerisms and movesets had all been faithfully recreated for players to experience in the game, with the announcement going as far to mention that even new WWE themed stages and missions have been added to really bring the world of these brands together. The executive producer of this video game, Shin Cho, would boast that the WWE and the King of Fighters had been entertaining people around the world for decades, so bringing these two franchises together in their game was something truly special for them and players alike. He would go as far to mention that they had worked closely with WWE to provide a truly authentic experience, bringing the likeness and moves of each superstar to the game which they knew players were going to love. But with such a combat crossover of such epic proportion taking place, you may perhaps be wondering how this could have possibly flown under your radar, or mainstream gaming culture as a whole for that matter, as the WWE and King of Fighters meeting in one game is a pretty historic event really. You would think with such a cool deal unfolding that we would see the likes of John Cena fighting against Terry Bogard in Versus Fighting action. Or how about the likes of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Rugal Bernstein meeting one-on-one at WrestleMania in a traditional professional wrestling game. Sadly though, believe it or not, this dream crossover happened in a video game genre that fans of neither of these established franchises are usually particularly that fond of. As this match made in heaven's utilisation resulted in perhaps some of the most wasted potential in the history of video games overall. If you thought the invasion angle back in the day was wasted potential, that's because you have never seen King of Fighters All-Star cross WWE. Mobile gaming company Netmarble would brag about the significance of their game, touting that the King of Fighters All-Star Cross WWE boasts fast-paced fighting action as players battle through waves of enemies, giant bosses and rival fighter teams. In fact, they would go as far to claim that the excitement, paired with cutting-edge graphics, bold colours and lightning-fast animation, would tantalise players' taste buds. Aided by the fact that in addition to being able to play as WWE Superstars, the game features all of King of Fighters' classic fighters from 1994 onwards, with over 130 fighters available to collect. So while all of this may sound great on paper, what was it about this one that makes it so terrible? Well, rather than being a wrestling game or fighting game as mentioned earlier, for some reason it was felt that the best way to utilise these licenses together was by sticking them in a freaking gacha game. What is a gacha game, you may perhaps ask? Well, gacha machines are those toy vending machines you get in Japan. You know, the ones you see in Shenmue, where you get the little capsules and figurines from them. You see, the gacha genre is named directly after these dispensers, due to both gacha machines and gacha games allowing users to use their hard-earned money in order to receive random prizes, in gacha games cases, loot boxes. These games, that are mostly played on mobile devices, induce players to spend in-game currency to receive random virtual items, with the majority of these titles being free to play, but massively encouraging players throughout to spend real-world money on gacha services, such as unlockables and other so-called prizes. Sadly, despite the fact that in most cases these are games where you literally have to pay to win, it probably comes as no surprise to you that this genre results in the highest grossing mobile games in the world, with this particular genre becoming a huge part of Japanese mobile gaming culture overall. Now, taking into account how much money these gacha titles make, it's not surprising really that the IP holders of King of Fighters, or even Vince McMahon himself, would be rubbing their hands together with such easy monetary gains potentially on the table. People are very stupid, you see. While these games are popular in Japan and other parts of the world, South Korea is another hotspot where these titles are known to do very, very well, with Netmarble themselves, the developers of this game, being located in that particular country. While the gacha mechanics lay at the black heart of this game, beneath it is a shallow experience pairing beat-em-up gameplay with role-playing elements. Basically think of it as a very poor man's River City Ransom. In fact, a very, very poor man's River City Ransom, as to play this game properly, rather than using in-game currency, you are obviously going to need to spend real-world cash instead. Yuck. Now, I could spend a millennia breaking this pay-to-win game down for you, explaining all of the ins and outs, but I feel that I would bore myself to death by doing so, let alone you, so I refuse to subject any of you to such torture. When I spent some time playing this game earlier this week, I actually had to stop after about 30 minutes to take a nap, as the game's lack of depth literally sent me to sleep. How games like this can possibly be so popular, I will never truly understand. I guess there just must be a lot of basic bitches out there who want to plough money into such poor quality tripe. Sadly, with this being neither a fighting game or wrestling game, the main attraction for me was to see King of Fighters and WWE Superstars simply in the same game. However, unfortunately, I could only see any of this on YouTube, as the WWE promotion within this game expired as of June of last year, leaving us today with a King of Fighters gacha experience, with the game currently instead featuring a short-time crossover promotion with Dead or Alive 5, meaning I never even got to actually play through what attracted me to King of Fighters All-Star in the first place. In terms of quality, I guess it is no major loss that such a gameplay opportunity has already been lost to time. But at the same time, it is always a scary reminder of how frighteningly quickly digital media can disappear, with this era quickly racking up more lost media than even the days of silent movies. Thank God for YouTubers capturing footage of these obscure gaming events, so we at least all have proof that these oddities actually happened. All in all though, there is no denying that it is absolutely hilarious that such a crossover existed, leading to some frankly bizarre imagery. All I can add really is that I would fully welcome another crossover down the line, but please make it a fighting or wrestling game next time. How freaking cool would that actually be? So ladies and gentlemen, that was the mad story of King of Fighters cross WWE, a crazy official crossover that could have been so much more than what we were given. If you enjoyed today's video, why not check out my video on the AEW Nintendo 64 game, or my coverage of Streets of Rage Russia, as I have plenty of content like this available for you to enjoy. If you are new here, hitting that subscribe button and notification bell is always appreciated, and feel free to let me know what other video game weirdness you would like to see spotlighted on here in the future. Videos like this are in part possible due to the fact that I work on YouTube full time, which is made easier by the great people who back what I do on Patreon. Speaking of these wonderful individuals, shoutouts go out to Sebastian Velez, The Murder of Crows, Carl Johnson, Heyo Paula Lopez, Nostalgia Collector, Ben Harradine, Corey Omar Sr., Capcom vs SNK, BXL Gotham, Ryan Dinched, Evan Border, Philip Nance, Azure Archive, Keith Ferguson, Joaquin Varela, Michael Cullix, Ego, Jordan Duran, Angel Light 85, Ian Boyle, Nick Daniels, Princess Zana, Daniel Daly, Computer Man, House of the Ted, Gary Pinkett, ECU Professor, Kid Anime, Justin Wang, Anne McNamara, Hermes Gonzalez, Instant Gratification Monkey, Man Shovel, James Bishop, JB, Michael Hall, Wesley Sanghi, Fellatio, Langston Miller, New, Brian Barry, Sarah Powell, Vlaming Renee, Marvin Liga, Chris Cool, TOG Driver, Adrian Hannington, Bernard NG, Richard Stu Stewart, Dan Van Dammit, Lewis Fiant, John Bates, David Ball, Chris Fisk, Mike Bruno, Rick67, Antonio Rodriguez, Craig Jenkins, Retroverse.com, Casey Wright, Since Spaces, Zai, Andrew Bazansky, Alex Summers, Gunther Hendricks, and everybody else who backs my work on the Patreon platform. Thank you very much.